Welcome to Lakers Central. I'm Alex, and as always, I'm joined by Vinay. So the Lakers just lost 116 to 109, but we got our championship rings tonight. And Vinay, this team played like a team that just received their championship rings for most of the game. So, one, how did you feel about the ring ceremony? And two, is this loss something you were kind of anticipating, given they were getting their rings tonight?
Yes, it was definitely what I was anticipating. Uh, I think we talked about it before the season, before even even before our pregame.
Yep.
Um, they weren't good. I did not expect them to win this game, and I'll take it even one step further. Um, I won't be surprised if the Lakers are barely over 500 basketball through the first 10 games of the season. Like
Mm.
this, I don't think folks, and it's okay. I mean, if some folks want to like co-sign it or not co-sign it, everybody has different levels of what they expect out of the players and stuff like that. So I completely understand that. But the Lakers are really, really not going to be trying to play serious basketball. I don't think until I don't know, maybe the 20th game of the season. I would be surprised if they play it sooner. Like they have not had time with a short free agency and limited training camp because of the pandemic, and just a short preseason. They've just not had time to integrate a bunch of guys that need to like be integrated. Like Dennis Schroeder is replacing Rondo, who is playing a very crucial role for the Lakers. So he's going to have to learn all this stuff on the fly. He's going to have to learn where Montrez likes to get the ball. If you watch the first quarter, there was a whole bunch of plays where he threw the ball at AD's feet because he's not used to setting up Anthony Davis in the post. So he has to
Right.
get used to how that process works. But before we go on to the game, let's talk about how awesome that freaking ring ceremony was.
Mm.
Um, I think it's awesome that they had the family members be the ones that introduced, like kind of called out the specific person to introduce picking up the ring and stuff like that. I thought it was really cool how they talked about the first responders. I
Hmm.
love Jeannie talking about the fans. I love Vogel talking about the fans. I thought the presentation was awesome. I thought it was very respectful. It was very I don't know, man. It was just really nice. Like even though we weren't there, like if it kind of
Hmm.
did feel like we were there. And so I thought that it was a really nice ceremony, and really the only thing I felt was I wish I could have been there. That was really the main
Yeah.
thing that I wish. Because I think Staples Center would have been rocking, and we probably still would have lost the game, but the atmosphere we wouldn't have cared. Not a single Laker fan would have cared about losing today's game. And that's what I think. I don't think Laker fans should take anything away from this game. But I mean, there's always things that you can learn, small things that you can learn about and stuff like that. What did you think of that ring ceremony?
I think it was great having their wives and their children and their mothers introduce them, and that was something I don't think we've ever seen before. Now,
Yeah.
normally family would have been there for a ring ceremony, but it's different, right? It's a pandemic, so it was amazing, man. Me and my wife, we were standing up watching it here in my office, and it was crazy to see, their kids, and like it was a joyous time, and you could tell with these players, like as they were going to pick up their rings out of the boxes, they were genuinely excited. And I was thinking, they have every right to be. This was an unprecedented season that they won, and that's on the court and off. And it was going to be hard to go from that ring ceremony to being prepared to play, really playoff basketball against a team that's going to be a contender this year. That was going to be difficult.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and not only that, it was a short off season. Like there was just all
Mm-hmm.
these things with new, half the roster was brand new. There was a lot of things going on that I just figured as long as they're competitive, I'm gonna feel good about tonight. And so shout out to Jeannie Bust and everybody that put that put the ring ceremony together. Adam Silver was there, obviously. Um, you know, th- as much as I wish that fans could have been there, and for myself, there's a good chance I would have been there as well if we were allowed. I wish Kobe could have been there. It's
Yeah.
just it's obviously he meant a lot to the franchise, and you and I, after he passed, we went live. I think either that night or the next day. I think we talked about it. But
Yeah.
anyway, it would have been nice that if him and Vanessa and the children could have been there. Gigi, obviously, but they got their rings, and as I was telling people, on social media and in the group chats, win or lose, there's not a whole lot to take away from this game. This is just game one.
Yeah.
So it is what it is.
Yeah. Yeah. I think like I was watching. Okay, just to give you some context, so folks aren't too overwhelmed by what happened. Paul George shot 72%. 72%.
Yeah.
That is, I mean, it's not even the term. Like that's it. That's just not realistic.
It's insane.
It seemed like Serge Ibaka was hitting every single wide open three he was getting. Like these are all things that are not going to like consistently happen over and over again. Right. So even with George shooting that much, it actually required George to basically shoot a ridiculous percentage for them to actually pull away in the third quarter. Even considering how that game started. I just thought it was absolutely insane that the Lakers erased a 20-point deficit in one quarter. Like that was pretty nuts to just kind of see. Like when they're locked in, like we know that they're going to be. When they're locked in, that team is it's just so hard to score on them, and they make you take like shots that you don't want, or they make you take shots that are out of rhythm, and then if it ends up being like a long three, then they're breaking out in transition. Like it's a tough team. It's a tough team to score on consistently. You have to be incredibly excellent, or you have to have like an outlier performance, like Paul George had today. So I'm not taking much from it. On the defensive end, I'm definitely not taking much from it, other than the fact that just like we saw in the preseason, like when they want to play defense and plays defense very, very seriously, they'll be they can completely turn the face of the game and the complexion of the game. But there were some small things to kind of learn, I would say, from the offensive end. And one was seeing Dennis Schroeder run the pick and roll with Anthony Davis and Trez. He looked really good today. A lot better than I think the last time we saw him be that active was like game one of the preseason. And it was against the Clippers, against a very similar lineup. So I was really, really impressed that he was kind of already in the flow. And that same thing that I talked about before, Dennis being like a very slithery player and just kind of getting around to his spots on the floor looked really good. So that was definitely something. That's probably the biggest positive that I would take away from this game. That Dennis looked, the guy that we were a little concerned about kind of figuring out his way, looked really good on the offensive end.
No, Dennis did well, especially with that second unit, where it felt like the second unit, they put the pedal to the metal and played much faster than that first unit. And so it was good to see. And the Lakers came out flat, obviously, in that first quarter. But that second quarter, they outscored the Clippers 35-17. Once they kind of had settled in, it was night and day from the first to the second quarter. So there's not a whole lot to take away from this particular game. Schroeder did look better than he did in the preseason, and he's still feeling his way out. I'd like to see them run more pick and roll with either Dennis and AD or Dennis and Trez. Like there needs to be more of that, and I think that we'll see a bit more of that as the season progresses. But he looked much better. And in that third quarter, when the Lakers had tied it up, and I was telling my wife, "Hey, I'll know in the first few minutes of that fourth quarter if we're going to win this game or not." And Paul George, he was hot. He was hitting everything. And I texted a few people, and I just said, "It's amazing how well he plays when there's no pressure." Like he was lights out, and give him credit. The dude hit crazy shots, but
I mean, that's the part that there should also be. That should also be like something that people should pay attention to. He was hitting contested shots, and so when somebody's hitting a whole bunch of contested shots against you, meaning like he's not like wide open and stuff like that, you tip your hat to him and just say, "All right, man, this guy had a great shooting game, and you hope you can overcome it if you can." But like they're contested shots. Like I saw folks complaining, well, Kuzma shouldn't be guarding Paul George. So I'm going to explain what I think is happening because I think. Sorry, I cut you off first. So you finish your thought, and I'll tell you why I think Kuzma gets put on Paul George. Go ahead.
So the funny thing is, I said to my wife, Kuzma shouldn't be guarding Paul George. LeBron should.
Yeah.
Like that's what like
Yeah.
when they were on the court together. I just said Kuzma's gonna get cooked, and no matter what, people are gonna act like he was supposed to do something to stop Paul George once Paul George gets hot.
Right. Right.
I think Frank laid a little too much at his feet. But what did you see and why Frank had Kuzma on him?
Okay, so the reason why I think Frank plays Kuzma is other than the fact that he thinks that he can be a capable body that can be in front of him. So Kuzma today was doing this thing where he was like that he used to have a problem with last season also, where he would try to anticipate
Hmm.
beforehand where he thought the player was going to go, and then he'd get himself out of position. And so like a guy like Paul George, if he uses like a little in and out dribble or something like Kuzma's trying to anticipate too much instead of remembering that he's 6'8" and that
Right.
even if he gets a step on him, you can still come over the top and block him. There was a play where that happened, where Kuzma actually was recovered pretty well off of a dribble fake by Paul George, and but he ended up fouling because he like mistimed the block from behind or whatever it was. Um, but I think the reason why one of the things that folks should think about is that when Kuzma gets placed on Paul George, there is a specific type of action that the Clippers love to run. It's a high screen pick and roll. They like to run it specifically with Paul George. And the reason why they like running it is because when Zubac or Ibaka comes out and gives that screen, Paul George he in rhythm steps into a 3-point shot that he's pretty good at. And there's no extra passing. It's not a complex set. It's nothing like that. Just a simple high screen pick and roll that he likes to pull up at. When Kuzma is guarding Paul George and he's trailing behind the screen, the threat of Kuzma being able to at least get to that ball, if Paul George isn't quick enough getting that shot off, it deters the Clippers from running that action. So what ends up happening is that you don't get Paul George running a high pick and roll, a shot that he likes to run, pull up for threes with, and they run the same set for Lou Williams. Instead, he has to go into isolation. So he has to either get into the mid range or he has to ISO against Kuzma. So that schematically is a little bit easier for the Lakers to defend. Now the problem for the Lakers today is, and so what was the Clippers' counter to that? The reason why they have Ibaka starting with this lineup is so that if Paul George and Kawhi Leonard have to go to isolations, Zubac isn't in the way. He's not bringing a second body with him. That's the entire purpose of Ibaka playing that role and being the high screen and roll guy there. So that's sort of what you have to think about when it comes to it. A lot of times we just think of it as, oh, Kuzma can't guard Paul George. That may very well be true. But you also don't expect somebody to shoot 72% against Kuzma. That's even in general, like you don't expect that. Just law of averages don't work that way. But the second thing also is when you have specific assignments played on certain people, it forces the offensive team to think about what kind of sets they want to run. They can't run the same sets that they normally would run. So tonight, what we saw end up happening is when Kuzma wasn't on Paul George and when it was somebody like KCP, if you watch that stretch of basketball where I think Paul George scored like 8 or 11 points or something like that in a row, you'll see like I think he scored 2 of them on Kuzma, but you'll see that one of them was a high screen and roll where KCP was behind Paul George, but because he's not tall enough to defend him, he can just take that 3 no problem in rhythm, right? Whereas I think the 2 that he had on Kuzma, they were out of isolation. Like he had to beat Kuzma with a dribble or do a step back or something like that. And if he makes them, then great. But I'll take my chances with Paul George. I'll take the field when it comes to Paul George not shooting 72% against Kuzma or whatever on a nightly basis, or for that to be sustainable through the season. So that's the way you kind of have to think about it. If you think about the way Kawhi scored today, how much pick and roll did he really run? Like most of it was out of isolation also. But the main difference between what they were doing this with this lineup versus the last lineup is that because Ibaka is standing on the 3-point line at the top of the arc, there's nobody else. Like Kawhi knows that he doesn't have to worry about anybody else giving him trouble and stuff like that. And so that's one of the things that you have to like. It's something that Frank will see on the tape. He'll say that, okay, I see what they're doing with this lineup and stuff like that. And then Frank will adjust. So I would not be surprised at all if either the Lakers run the same thing that they ran last time and run the same lineups, or if they just swap it out and they say, okay, Markieff, you're going to start at the 5 instead today. or Montrez, you'll start at the 5 instead today, and then we'll work it out that way. It gives Gasol matches up a little bit with Zubac and stuff like that. So there are small things, and there are reasons why these sort of small things happen. Um, and that's just kind of the way that like I always try to look at it. Really, the main thing that the main thing I was most interested in seeing was just to see like how the Lakers offense looked. They look very disjointed at the very beginning of the game. A lot of sloppy turnovers, a lot of like just settling for bad quality jump shots that seemed like they were out of rhythm and stuff like that. And then once their defense started going, they started getting in transition. They get layups at the rim. All of a sudden now their shooting mojo comes back, and that like there was a stretch where like the Clippers would hit a shot, like hit a jumper, a tough jumper, or something like that, and Dennis Schroeder would come back immediately and just like without even waiting for his teammates, he would go to the rim for a layup early in transition, or he would pull up for like a jumper or something like that, and like right in Lou Williams' face or something like that. And I thought that was great. I thought that kind of stuff was really really great to see. Um, I'm not really because I thought AD looked so good, man. His jumper looked so nice in that first half.
Oh,
That
that mid
was
range,
unbelievable.
his
It
mid
was
range is still going.
oh my god, that mid range. You see the very one of the first isolation plays. He so they ran that left isolation left block the whole time, right? They ran that a whole bunch for AD,
Hmm.
and he had one. And remember, they got Ibaka for this matchup because AD is a mobile guy and stuff like that. And he put that he did a jab step to the right and then went baseline and he got Ibaka completely out of position for a dunk and he ended up dunking it. Um, and
He
bro,
cooked
like
him.
the they were double teaming him. Game one, they were double teaming him like he because he and then and I think that when Ibaka went to the bench, they put Zubac on him and he was just drilling mid range after mid range shot, and then they had to start sending double
Yep.
teams, and that's what led to like I think Braun's first dunk, because it was Patterson or it was whoever his guy was that came to double him, and so Braun just cut right behind him for an easy dunk. So like this like this they know what their counters are. These guys know what they're all capable of and all that sort of stuff. I wouldn't take anything from this game. The thing that I would really want to be monitoring is just like making sure that like they're continually getting more and more rhythm. There's a lot of plays where um, I thought we had careless unforced turnovers. So Schroeder
Oh
throwing it
yeah.
off of AD's feet, the lob from above. Caruso had a lot of passes that just kind of went nowhere
Yeah.
today. So it's just like there's me and you have talked about it. Everybody keeps saying, well, Taylor Horton Tucker is going to take Kuzma's minutes. I'm telling you guys, that's not how it's going to work out. Like you guys need to watch like what these minutes, like what these responsibilities are. Kuzma's not being asked to run pick and roll or run the
Yes.
offense or anything like that. So Kuzma is not going to be the guy who loses his minutes. It's going to be Caruso if he's shaky in those moments, and they may move him more off the ball. Like I felt like today when they were running Taylor Horton Tucker and Caruso was more on the ball today for some reason.
Hmm.
He was the one, running the pick and roll and stuff like that. But clearly we know that Tucker is pretty good at it too. So it was a little bit of a surprise that the Lakers never called any of those sets for him, even though they were running in the preseason. Maybe that flips. Maybe as the season progresses, we start seeing Caruso play that off-ball role, and then Tucker be the on-ball guy a little bit more, and see how that synergy works and stuff like that. But these are progressions that we have to monitor as it goes on. So I thought a lot of small things that were really interesting to see.
Right.
Um, but I would nothing alarming, nothing too alarming that I would be too stressed out about.
No, it's just it's way too early. It's game one, and so I wanted this win. I'm sure that every other Lakers fan wanted this win, and we took an L, and we happened to take an L with the Clippers. And when you look at how things kind of shaped out, so I watched that play with AD basically going baseline against Ibaka. I mean, Ibaka could do nothing with him. He just blew by him and cooked him and went in for the dunk. Um, the Lakers know. I really do think that they believe they're the better team and they know what they need to do. It's just it's too early, and Someone that people were texting me about was Marc Gasol. They were saying he's too slow. He looks like he's kind of out of it. Guys, Gasol is a slow player, but he's a really smart player. He finds guys. I think he will be fine. Like I just think that some of the mishaps you saw tonight were just a symptom of it being ring night. Lakers had 19 turnovers. That was brutal. And even when the Clippers turned it over, who they had 16 turnovers, it always felt like the Lakers did a really poor job in trying to score after the Clippers turned the ball over. The Lakers were just out of it. So there's barely anything that I can really take away from this. Trez did have 17 and 10, and he looked like he was cleaning up around the basket. I think he played fairly well. Did you see anything out of Trez that you were surprised with?
I thought that they had I thought that they had to seriously watch out for Trez on the offensive boards. His activity was really, really high. And sometimes, again, we don't see it because there's no counting stat for it, but putting pressure on the offensive glass, that hurts. It hurts the defending team's ability to break out in transition on you and stuff like that when it comes to their transition offense. And so that's the part that I think is really good for the Lakers, that if they keep four guys around Trez that are really, really good quality defenders, that Trez can go, and if they can allow him to attack the offensive glass however much he wants, and as as they're coming back, even if he doesn't get the offensive rebound, he can hustle back, and he can still trust that he'll have four other quality defenders on the court, making sure they keep an eye on his guy just in case he gets beat in a foot race or something like that. So I thought his energy was really good. I thought there was a couple plays where the Lakers, had they had a few misses and stuff like that here and there that he was able to clean up for them and stuff like that. So I thought that was pretty awesome to see. He did everything I kind of expected him to do. We didn't see him run too much isolation. He had a couple, I would say maybe one or two isolation plays, but most of his action was out of pick and roll. So that was good. A lot of Dennis's actions were either out of pick and roll or in transition, mixed stuff. He's Schroeder's so fast, man.
Oh,
when he gets that step on you, man, it's he had a baseline layup, I want to say, where he just he was, I forget who it was that was defending him, but he had him sealed up. He was down in a defensive stance and everything, and Schroeder just light foots his way right across, lightly taps his toes right along the baseline for a layup. And it's just stuff like that is really, really good. I want to say that a lot of KCP's drives to the rim, he had a couple of really great plays where he kicked it across the court, but he kicked it to a wide open three. So that's good that his progressions on that end are continuing to get better and get better and get better. So that's something that's very good to see when that happens.
I mean, you talked about us, maybe going 5-5 to start the season. So we had the Clippers tonight, right? But the Mavericks on Christmas Day. Then the Timberwolves, the Blazers, Spurs, Grizzlies, and then the Spurs and Bulls to round it out. Clippers opening night's going to be tough. Mavs on Christmas Day. That's another one where the world is watching. Yep. It's Christmas, so tonight you had the ring ceremony, right? Christmas, you've got Christmas.
Christmas, yep.
Right. So there's another distraction. So, but after that, the Timberwolves are certainly beatable. The Blazers, Dame can get hot. We've seen Dame and CJ get cooking, and they're difficult to defend. And then the Spurs and Grizzlies, Lakers should be able to knock those guys off. But how do you think that they fare against Luka? Because he's a different animal than Kawhi and Paul George.
Yeah, so that'll be interesting to see, right? Because they run a very Houston Rockets, D'Antoni style offense, which is high pick and roll. You get Luka in the middle of your defense to kind of, pick apart your defense and that sort of thing. So that'll be interesting to see. I don't think Porzingis is there, so I'm assuming they're either starting. I don't know who they're going to start. If they're going to start Boban or if they're going to start Kleber, or I think they have Willie Cauley-Stein on that team still. They also have Dwight Powell, which they use as a small ball center. I'm not sure who they're going to start that game, but I would say I would say that it'll be a good test for the Lakers' rotation defense because they're a good passing offense and stuff like that. But I will say also that their shooting probably took a little bit of a hit because they swapped out guys like Seth Curry
Yep.
for a guy like Josh Richardson who can shoot threes, but he's a better defender than he is an offensive shooter. So like they shifted their identity from being a floor spacing 3-point shooting team to a floor spacing but not as great 3-point shooting team, but much better defensive team in that regard. So I think it'll be interesting. It'll really, to be honest, I think whether we win or lose kind of depend on like what version of Braun we get that game. Like Braun had a couple of plays, and not that it matters. There's indication of everything else. Like he had like 2 point blank. Like when I'm saying point blank, I'm talking about like, yeah, like he could have just got on his toes and dunked it. Like he had a couple point blank layups that he missed, which he's going to make and stuff like that. So I think that's going to be something that the team will kind of feed off of and stuff like that. So I'll see. They're going to test out Wes Matthews on Luka. They're going to test out Caruso. They're going to test out probably Kuzma on him as well. So we'll learn. We'll learn what the savvy of our what the metal of our like defender, or, our defensive players are, and our 3-and-D guys are. So I wouldn't, will they win that game? Maybe. They actually shot. I thought, after the first quarter, I thought the Lakers actually shot pretty well. It just came down to like them not playing consistent defense. I felt like there's a lot of possessions where the Lakers just kind of very casual on their effort on the defensive end. And that's kind of what cost them this game. I don't know if they'll do the same thing 2 games in a row. That was a thing that they kind of prided themselves on last year. If you guys, if you remember, like they don't want to lose they want to avoid losing back-to-back games as much as possible. So they may come out a little bit more crisp. They might come out a little bit more crisp against Dallas, at least defensively, because of that reason. But also, I want to keep seeing if Anthony Davis continues to score the way he does. Like, there's a lot of things about our team that are going to be different, and it's going to be a different experience. Last season, we had to rely on some really, really great defense to keep us, keep us in the game against a historic offense. This time, we have a much better offense. So, do we need to rely on that defense like that? So, it's these sort of things are just things you're going to go and learn. And some part of it's kind of cool. Like we know what the core identity of our roster is. And we know that when we're engaged in that manner, that'll happen. I think our stars know that, our coaching staff knows that. But I think the cool part of this season is that these new guys, it's going to be a different experience. This was literally the first game of the season. Our bench was actually the reason that we fought back into a game as opposed to continue to be bad. So that's what I'm saying. It's just going to be something different that we have to experience. And, I think a lot of people are annoyed by this loss because the Lakers were always close all the way through. And these are the most annoying games to lose. So I get that, but I'm on a different wave because we won a championship. So I won't stress it too much right now. Oh, I think are you muted?
Sorry. Yep. Shout out to Bentley.
There you go.
So he sent this comment in, and so to your point, our bench was the reason we got back in this game. But last season, I felt like starters would play well, and then the bench would let us down. But Bentley, he points out the slow start in the preseason and slow start tonight. Bentley, I understand this. I don't want to use the excuse this preseason and first game, but it's literally preseason the first game. I don't know what else to say. If we were 10, 15, 20 games in the season and this was still going on, we've got a problem. But the starters are not going to get down like this. They're not going to get down 10, 15 points most games. They're probably going to be up 10 points most games.
Yeah. And then, I mean, LeBron's always the head of the snake when it comes to these sort of things. And as he goes, so does this team and stuff like that. And he took a lot of jumpers early on
Mm-hmm.
and stuff like that. Had some random careless turnovers and stuff like that. These are all things that he's not going to keep doing because he also has like his own standard of excellence and stuff
Right.
like that, or whatever it may be. So I wouldn't stress too much of that sort of stuff. I think we did that exercise last year, and to be honest, like when you look at him, like when he came out in his second shift, I would say after his first shift, he looked phenomenal. Like this reminded me a lot of the first game against Phoenix, where him and AD came out real slow at the
Mm-hmm.
beginning of the first shift. The Lakers went down, and then when they came out in the second shift, they like completely blew Phoenix out of here. So, nah, man, it's Bentley. You're not overreacting. I think this is like the nature. And I'm not saying it like I'm better than like I don't overreact and stuff like that.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
just I think it's irritating. I think what makes it more irritating is that we lost a game that we clearly could have won because we were in such close proximity of
Mm-hmm.
winning that game. But I mean, to be honest, like if we if we're playing like this, if we're playing this poorly, I would say by like game 10 of the season, then I would be like, all right, maybe we should be a little bit concerned about the lack of effort by this team and stuff like that. But I don't think the Lakers are too concerned this early on. And I don't know when they will be, to be honest. Like this is a team that we have to remember, this is a team that ripped off 7 games and then one loss, 10 games and then one loss. Like they were winning like huge. They had like 4 win streaks last season, where it was like at
Mm-hmm.
least like 7 to 10 games before they lost a game. So it's they can lose the opening game, and I think that's what happened last season too as well. We lost the opening game and then rip off 7 straight wins and then lose again. But if you feel the energy of Lakers Twitter, those one losses feel like they're 100 losses for some reason.
Yeah.
It's just because everybody loves winning, and it is what it is. But I thought the small things that we were trying to keep track of as it relates to like is AD shooting going to translate? Well, we saw that look up. Will Dennis Schroeder be a good scorer off the bench for us? Yep, he definitely was. Will Montrez bring energy? Yes, he did. And those are all good things to like continue building on when they go into the film room and try to like learn some stuff that they need to learn. Defensive communication mistakes, stuff like that. That's gonna happen. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's brand new guys; they don't know how to rotate correctly. There was a couple plays where Montrez was like just a second, like a footstep too late to get to the
Yeah.
block, and I was just like, oh, okay, he's gonna see that in the footage, and he's gonna get used to understanding when his teammates actually need that backside help. So that's the way I kind of took this game.
And I look, they could have played better, but I wish you know what? Like I wish I could be mad, but I'm just not. I
Yeah,
think what's happened at this point is,
but you can be annoyed. You can be annoyed.
right,
There's nothing wrong with being annoyed.
right.
I think that's totally fine.
And so I last season I when we won I got really high, and when we lost I'd get really low. Now we got the championship. They did what they were supposed to do. We've got 2 superstars. We've got this great roster. You know, hey, it's a marathon, man. Like shout out to Nipsey and his people. It's a marathon. Like guys, this was never gonna get won, in first game of the season. And so right now, I think it's important. I try, you and I talk about this a lot. Like enjoy all of this. Enjoy the
Yeah,
championship. Enjoy
yeah,
even when they take an L. Like this is an opportunity for Frank Vogel to talk to the team and say, on ring night, you guys got embarrassed. Like you let
yeah,
you
yeah,
let the guys at the other end of the hallway beat you guys, and now come Monday, all the talking heads are going to be talking about the Clippers and what's wrong
yeah,
with the Lakers. But like we had a whole season of this last year, and so this is an opportunity for them to get better. But it's going to take time. Like I agree with you. It's very possible they go 5-5. I think last season we started off 27-3. We lost game
yeah,
one,
yeah,
and
yeah.
yeah, went on some ridiculous run. And then I think the Lakers never lost a game after winning leading the third quarter, something like that last season.
Yeah,
They
they were undefeated. Yeah, the Lakers were undefeated last season when they had a lead going into the third quarter, or sorry, going into the fourth quarter.
right. So I just can't get frustrated. Like I just think guys enjoy it, and I think guys are going to get better. Like I wonder, do you think Frank changes the lineup against the Mavericks, or he sticks with this lineup, starting lineup?
No, I think he likes this lineup. I don't think he'll particularly change it. Um, I think he wants to get I think he wants to get the reps up between Schroeder and LeBron
Hmm.
specifically. I think he needs Schroeder. He's trying to get Schroeder as much time as he possibly can to play next to LeBron and AD, so he understands how to play around them and understands like their tendencies and how he can help them out and stuff like that. He started this game off. I think it was Braun who set him up for a wide open three on the wing when his guy went to go. I think Patrick Beverly, who's guarding him, went to go rotate over on Braun to help on one of his drives. Braun immediately kicked it to Schroeder. Schroeder immediately hit a three. So like that kind of synergy and understanding what happens and where the ball needs to go and stuff like that. That's stuff that I think Vogel wants these guys to understand. The only way they're going to be able to do it is to get live reps against these teams, and that's just kind of what it is. I think last season the Lakers had a lot to prove because a lot of people were discounting them. They had a lot of guys with chips on their shoulders. They do this season too as well. So the winning some of those regular season games or having a good regular season record was
Hmm.
really important to them. I don't think that's the case this year. I don't think they feel that they have. I think that they know that the thing that they need to prove is that they are a good team to themselves and that they can pick up where last year's team left off. Um, but look, man, we said it at the very beginning. Health is really really important. LeBron tweaked his ankle on Zubac today. KCP got kneed in his calf from what it looked like. Like these are the small nicks and bruises that we want to try to
Hmm.
avoid. And when you play like what we keep saying, like the balls to the walls defense, when you're playing defense like that, like these kind of things will happen. LeBron tweaked his ankle trying to go help and block Zubac on the help side, and KCP was just playing defense and he got screened and
Yep.
he got kneed in the leg. So like we don't care. Like we don't care about losing this game. We care about getting our rings and being healthy going into the next game because we know how much of a season can change when you have one or two serious injuries.
And that's all that matters. I think health is such a key because the turnaround was so fast. These guys have to kind of ramp back up really quickly. It's just going to take time. I would have really loved to get this win. I was prepared to talk all kinds of trash tonight on social media. Unfortunately, I have to table all that for another game. But it really is what it is. You have anything you want to add, Vinay, for us to probably, I guess, close out the live stream or the post game this evening?
No, it's thanks for all the folks that joined us. Is it Tuesday? It's Tuesday night, right? Yeah, it's tonight.
Yep.
It was an awesome ring ceremony. So I hope everybody enjoyed. Um, and it was game one. There's not too much to extrapolate from game one, but one thing is for sure, the Lakers will have their progressions for both their young guys in Kuzma, Caruso, and THT, as well as the new guys, Schroeder and Trez and Wes and Gasol. So just enjoy the ride, and we'll always be here talking about the good and the bad, and the ugly and the beautiful. So look forward to seeing everybody on Thursday for the next one.
Yeah,
Thursday
we
or
will.
Friday?
Wait, Christmas is Friday, right?
Oh, Christmas is on Friday. Okay, so I'll say everybody Friday. Sorry.
Yeah. I mean, so guys, as always, we really appreciate you tuning into the live stream. We appreciate you listening to the podcast. These have been really fun, I think, for us. And I think we're probably overwhelmed by how many people are sending in questions and comments and join us on these things. So we really appreciate that. It's going to be a long season, but we'll be here with you pretty much every game that we can. And again, thank you guys as always. So you've been listening to or watching Laker Central.